Welcome back to the Mental Wealth Mamas podcast. If you haven't joined us before, I'm Ellie.
And I'm Jade, and we are two mums on a mission to end the silence that surrounds mental health. Each podcast episode will be different, and we will, where possible, add trigger warnings for you. But as we all know, triggers can creep up and surprise us. So if this is the case for you today, we respectfully urge you to stop listening. Not every episode is for everyone, and that is okay. Your mental health is what we care about first and foremost. There will always be a chance to revisit and replay.
Disclaimer, we are in no way medical professionals and we are not giving medical advice. If there is something you are concerned about, you should always seek medical help via your GP or maternity services.
This is no way a substitute for therapy. We respect everyone's right to an opinion and hope this helps those who need it.
We talk about everything from the roller coaster that is parenting, mental health in general, and what it really means to achieve mental wealth.
We will be chatting to lots of different people from all walks of life, both in the public eye and your everyday person. And today we have with us Stuart Armfield. He is a husband, father of two, musical theatre star turned online entrepreneur, and advocate for couples embarking on their surrogacy journey. Stuart, you have a very busy life and we're really grateful for you taking the time to chat to us. We'd love to hear like an overview of your story in your own words.
So my overview of my story, I basically, from a very young age, wanted to be in musical theatre. That was like my passion. And I'm so grateful that I had that from a young age because it really gave me loads of tenacity and drive and ambition and vision for my life as well. I then went into a drama school and had the best 3 years, like Fame School, had the best 3 years, graduated from there and then went into musical theatre for 10. I was there for 10 years and I had a really great career, but I just knew there was something more that I needed to do. And so then started looking, I suppose because of social media, really, I saw that there was just so many ways to create passive income and create income for myself via social media. So I started kind of selling product online, like skincare and nutrition online, which I absolutely loved. And then over time, I then start from that business, started to speak to really like well-established influencers. And I realized they're no different to me. And I was like, actually, do you know what? I'm going to give this a go as well. So in 2020, I started to me and my husband decided, right, okay, we want to start a family. And so we jumped onto social media and kind of just to try and find out how a gay couple has a family, because it's confusing. we're missing a vital part of the puzzle. And so we went online to kind of figure out how to do it. And there was actually just no representation of two dads. And me and Francis were like, we had a really long discussion about it to start with. Like, do we actually want to put ourselves in the public eye? Do we actually want our family to be like people know of our family via social media? But then we kind of decided actually there is such a bigger purpose here for us showing up on social media to show there's two dads. Like I was really emotionally attached to Neil Patrick Harris. I don't know if you know who that is, but he is a massive actor and he had two children, and I used to just watch their family constantly online and be like, that is my inspiration, that's where I want to be. But there was no representation in the UK at all. So then in 2021, when our son was born, we just started to document what it's like having two dads. And what I found when I was trying to find two dad families is that what is the dynamic of two dads? I've never experienced what two dads looks like. How does that play out? And so we just kind of like used to vlog, and still do vlog every single day about our life and what we're up to and the kids, etc., etc. And then it just kind of blew up in 2020. I think it was 2021 or 2022. We literally went from like 0 followers to 1.2 million and on TikTok, and it just has, kept growing and kept, being an unbelievable vehicle for us to share our story. And also what I think is really exciting for us is that we're working with these amazing brands and doing brand deals and all that kind of stuff, but coming from the point of with a two dad family kind of viewpoint. And I just think it's amazing because when I grew up, there was no representation. There was no brands being attached to people like myself, and seeing other people celebrate us, I just think is just so amazing. So that's where we are, 2024 and nearly end of 2024. How has this year gone so quickly? And yeah, here we are living our best lives, really.
Amazing.
So what would you say has been the single most challenging moment for you in terms of your mental health being affected in this roller coaster, more so in the past 4 years of you like really scaling your like social media, like, and involving your family? Like, how would you say, what was like the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, so I think the reason I wanted to start a family. So basically in 2020, no, 2019, end of 2019, my dad died. And it was such a big shock to me. I've always been a very positive, happy, upbeat person. And grief literally just threw me to the wayside. I've done loads of personal development. I thought I was all good. I thought I'd be okay when my dad died. I had a year of knowing that had a year to live, basically. And that 2019 was the best year of my entire life. It was incredible. We had so much fun and we just made the most of that year. But then when 2020 happened, then we got put into lockdown, and my whole life literally went from being a massive socialite to being a recluse and being in my house by myself. I literally was on the floor. I was so sad. I couldn't I couldn't shake it either. Like, I wanted to be sad. I didn't want to be happy in that moment, which is so strange. Like, even now talking about it, it feels so strange to me because I know so many ways to get out of sadness when you're just traditionally sad. But this wasn't like a tradition. This was like literally wiping the floor. So I was on my knees, really, really, really at rock bottom in terms of my happiness. And then I spoke to one of my best friends, Nicola Wills, and she was like, Stu, I just really feel like right now, our wedding got cancelled. It was supposed to be in 2020. She's like, right now, why don't you just put all your energy and all your focus into having a family? You've always talked about it, but you've never kind of like taken that leap. I know it's scary, but use the money that you were going to spend on your wedding and put that into starting a family. And it was the best, one of the most pivotal conversations I think I've ever had in my entire life. And from that moment, it just gave me hope again. And I kind of like, I think that's throughout my whole life, I've always lived in hope. And through my musical theatre career, it's like, oh my God, today could be the day I get a call from so and so that something's going to change. And then through my business, it was like, oh my God, I could actually change my entire like financial life. And then when I lost it in 2020, to regain it again with the opportunity of like, oh my God, I could start a family, the hope started to build back up in me. And by the time Ria was born in 2021, I honestly just felt like the most unbelievable sense of like happiness and gratitude, and like it all happened for that reason. Like, I don't think without my dad dying and jolting me in the way it did, maybe I wouldn't have ever started a family. Maybe it would never have happened. But I just felt I lost such a big part of my heart when he passed, that I just felt like these kids have just built it back and built it back stronger than ever. Like, it's been such an incredible experience for me. But yeah, that's kind of my kind of grief journey, I suppose.
The most challenging. I think it's really nice as well, like from the kind of embers of grieving for your dad, that you became a dad to.
It's like a full circle moment.
Yeah, it's really nice. So behind the family videos, which are gorgeous, by the way,
we love them.
The singing and the dancing. There are more serious sides to you. You've had a lot of battles along the way to get to where you are now. You don't have to go into each individual experience, but like, how have you maintained that hope and that grit and determination to keep going through those moments?
I think being gay, I think that was my first kind of like battle in my with myself more than anything. And being gay has made me just not care what people think, not be like attached to other people's emotions, and has given me a lot. And I notice a lot with gay men is they have a lot of ambition and a lot of drive. And I've always kind of like, I don't know where that comes from, whether it's, I don't know, the I will prove you wrong when I was at secondary school or whatever that kind of comes from. But having that drive has, I suppose, really served me well. And I suppose, to be honest, I don't get down very often. Like, I'm not a person that necessarily always feels like sad. But when I do, and I have moments, of course, when I'm so tired and I haven't had any sleep. Those are hard days, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I just always am focused on a bigger vision of where I'm going and where this kind of journey. And also, I think that what I've learned from 2020 in that dark time is that everything has its season. You're not always going to be sad all the time. You're not always going to be happy all the time. You're not always going to be, I always strived in the past to always be happy and always make sure that I was like really excited and whatever. But actually, that's just unattainable. You can't necessarily be like that every single day of your life. And so it's like working out, here I am in this moment today. I'm going to make the most of what I've got in this moment right now, because that's the only thing I can control. And I'm going to choose, and this can be hard if you're depressed or if you've got like there's something major going on, but when there isn't, for me personally, I'm always try to choose the next best feeling and the next thing that I can feel better about. Even if that's just popping out of the house and getting a coffee, like just whatever it is, just to kind of change my environment and get me happy and get me back into that kind of like place of appreciation. I think as long as you can feel like have hope of where you're going and at the same time have gratitude for where you are, if you can have those two things in a combination, then I think you can have a really fulfilled life without much. Like I've always, even when I didn't have any money or any children or anything that necessarily a person would say that was a success, I've always been a happy person because I've always had those two things of hope and gratitude. And I remember when I was like, I must have been like in my 20s, had zero money, literally couldn't pay my rent, was always worried about how I was going to pay my £300 a month rent. And I would just like walk across the bridge that I used to get to my house on and be like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And just reminding myself just to stay in that grateful place of where I am, that I'm in London. There's so much opportunity here. I can do anything. I can achieve anything. Like today could be the day that could change the rest of my life. Like that's the kind of mindset I've always had. sounds really, it sounds really American now I'm saying it, but that's always kind of how I've lived.
Yeah, I need to like wake up with your voice in my head. Like I really do. I feel like happy at talking to you. Call me every morning, that'd be great.
So with your surrogacy journey, you guys have spoken about how you didn't originally research the UK as an option.
Yeah.
Because when the baby is born, the legal parents are the birth mother and her husband, meaning you both would have no parental responsibility, even though technically the baby is genetically connected to you and Francis. So you really have to trust the surrogate. And I know your surrogates were friends, so that obviously must have massively helped. But were you filled with, like, how did you manage the fears, the anxiety, the stress? Because with Rio, did it take 6 months to get
I think they both took around about 8 months to come through.
Okay.
I never had any fear or anxiety around the parental order, because I suppose at the beginning I did, because you just never know. And going into something like this, my priority, I am just a massive advocate for women. I love women, not in any sexual way, but in obviously, but in a way, like I just love powerful, independent women. I love supporting them. Like if there's a small business run by women, I'm all over it because I just love women. And so when we went through the surrogacy process, me and Francis had a conversation and we were like, we will only do right by the person that's carrying our baby and also by the egg donor as well, because they're two different entities. And so we actually spoke to different countries to do surrogacy. One of them was in Mexico, one was in America, and then we kind of dabbled in the UK, but we realized if we did it in the UK that it would take a long time to, number one, find a surrogate, and then we didn't know how it was ever going to work. And we also, it's a weird situation because you're not in the UK allowed to ask someone to be your surrogates, and also that's really weird saying someone, would you carry my baby and be pregnant for 9 months? That's just strange. So we just didn't want to go down that route straight away or at all. And so we actually had a call with Mexico, because in Mexico you can do it much cheaper. And we had a call, and it just, for us, and everyone's different, and Mexico is right for some families and not right for others, but for us it just felt like these women weren't being like fully looked after with the agency we went into. And so actually me and Francis said we will do it in America, even even though it could cost up to $200,000 per child, which is just outrageous. But we decided to do it there to start with because we just knew that it was everything was sound. Like the women were being looked after, they were being paid well, which is something we wanted to be able to do, and all that kind of stuff. But then halfway through the process of going through that surrogacy process, our egg donor actually let us down. And we spoke about it on social media, and one of my friends messaged me and said, "I'll be your surrogate," even though it's different to an egg donor. I don't think she quite understood the difference anyway. She's like,
Yeah.
"I'll be your surrogate," and she was in the UK, and I used to work with her, or I still do work with her in business, and we get on really, really well. And it was such a curveball because we were like not intending to do it in the UK whatsoever, but we just thought it was during COVID. So we're like, this means we get to go to every single appointment. This means we actually get to be at the birth. Because in during COVID times, there was some people that couldn't get over for the birth of their babies. And it just meant that it would be much more safe. And we in the UK, you can't pay a surrogate. You can't pay for someone to be your surrogate. And also, when you have a baby in America, it's like £10,000 a bare bone minimum just to have be in a hospital, let alone if something else goes wrong. So it's outrageous. The costs in America are outrageous. So we ended up saving ourselves a lot of money by doing that. And it was the most unbelievable experience. Like we had such a good time, and it was just so nice to be able to have a friend. And we were unsure of how it would feel and how she would feel once the baby was born, but it all kind of melted away. And we've always said, like, Sam's actually looked after Rio like maybe last year when we went to Eurovision Song Contest. And we always wanted Sam to have a really good relationship with Rio. And I think as he gets older, he's starting to like talk about mummies and daddies and whose belly was I in. He was watching Peppa Pig, and he's like, whose belly? If I haven't got a mummy, whose belly was I in? And we were like, oh, you're in Auntie Sam's belly. He's like, oh my gosh. But so I feel like as time goes on, he's going to understand the power of what she's done for us as a family. And I can't wait for her to really experience him understanding, because that would be such a nice moment. But I don't know if I've answered that question. I can't.
I love it.
Did I answer that question?
So I think the saying is be the change that you want to see. And it couldn't be more true for you guys, really, could it? You guys are so driven to help other couples that are in similar situations to you. Do you find that helping others and being so raw about your journey actually kept you going at times when maybe you felt like you didn't want to?
I the main reason we kind of spoke online is because when I started to reach out to people that had babies before, there were some people that didn't get back to me, and understandably, they're busy, they've got their own lives. But I really wanted to be that person that answered my DMs and got back to people and put them in the place in touch with the right people, because in the UK it can seem a little bit underground sometimes if you don't know the right people to kind of help you. So that was always my mission. When I don't feel like doing social media, I just don't do it, because I don't ever want to show up and like if I'm not in a great mood, I just won't show up on social media. So I don't feel like doing it for other people in that kind of way has ever really changed my opinion. Like I can only do social media from a good place, and when I'm a bit down, actually, I just steer away, because actually I feel like the scroll hole that I can get myself into actually just heightens my sadness sometimes. And so I think that yeah, I don't know if I don't know if it necessarily kept me going. It's just that I really want to support people, and I don't know all the answers, but I do know people that help me find out the answers. So yeah,
Because financially, you guys obviously have invested a lot of money, haven't you, into having your children. What
yeah,
I find amazing really is, you know how heterosexual couples going through IVF get, is it one round?
Usually
Isn't it amazing that
yeah,
this is nothing? There's no like,
Mm.
if you want a baby, it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands, and that's just that.
yeah,
I can't get my head around how
The unjustness of it
yeah,
all.
and also, but also how we say, you know, we treat everybody equally. Yeah, no, you know, all of this, that, and the other. Oh, you know, I attended Pride. You know, you know, I like gay couples, this, that, and the other. But then, what's going on there? Like, that's not
Yeah.
equal at
No,
all.
it's not. No, it's not equal. And even in terms of a lesbian couple, it's so different to a gay couple as well. Because when the lesbian couple has the baby, they go through both of the people, both partners go onto the birth certificate from day one. It's
Yeah.
only in a gay couple that you go through a parental order and you have to not be put on the birth certificate. It's only as a gay couple, which I'm really hoping will change. And that's one thing I've really kind of been talking about on social media to kind of raise awareness around that, because I would love because when a surrogate has a baby, she does not want to keep that baby. She's put her whole, she's like tuned out because you have to, because otherwise you won't be able to emotionally detach. And if something were to happen to that baby and there was a problem, then the gay couple decided, actually I don't want to have that baby anymore, then legally she's holding that baby that she does. It would be a frigging nightmare. So actually, although they're trying to protect the woman, sometimes if you look at it in different cases, obviously it's case by case, sometimes that protection is actually doing a disservice to the woman. So I always think if it's going through a surrogacy process, put the two parents on the birth certificate who want to be on there straight away. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of these laws were created in 1984, like the year I was born, 40 years ago. It's like so outdated, and IVF probably wasn't really a thing back then. Surrogacy definitely wasn't a thing. So it just needs to kind of catch up with the times of what's going on right now. But the one thing that me and Francis were always so happy and grateful about is that we could actually do that in this country. Like in Italy, in Germany, in loads of European countries, in France, surrogacy is not allowed, and for straight couples or gay couples. And so the fact that we were allowed to do this, and we can, and everyone wanted to do it, it just, yeah, we're so fortunate in that way. Although there's lots of further we can go with it, but yeah, and I do think it's discrimination in terms of like how much it costs. I mean, if we'd done it in the UK though, in the UK it's much cheaper, but it's still a lot. It's like
Yeah.
it's a lot. It really is.
So intense.
Yeah, so a lot to
See,
get your head around.
you've spoken a bit about like the lack of representation for the LGBTQ plus community, exploring surrogacy. And then how, if you don't mind us asking, like how were your younger years in the lead up to you coming out and living authentically? Like you live very authentically you. Like that's when people see you guys on social media, you're like there, loud and proud, and it's amazing, and it's so good for the younger generations to see. But like, has it always been that way? Did you struggle with becoming that, or was it always just
Yeah.
the way you were?
So I feel like I've always struggled with it, actually. It's really interesting. I didn't necessarily need to face it until we started to have a family. I was like, because me and Francis, we were together. He was 22, I was 25, and we have been together ever since. We're in an amazing relationship, like the best relationship that I know of all of my friends. We're so tight, we get on so well, and there's never been any drama, any fallouts, any breaks, it's just really flowed so naturally and felt so natural as well. And so when we were in this relationship together, we didn't necessarily think, this is going to sound a bit strange, we didn't necessarily think, oh, we're a gay couple. We had no other gay friends. All of our friends were women. And so when our women friends would talk about their husbands or their boyfriends, I would talk about my boyfriend and my husband in the same way, and not feel like that's strange and not feel like it's weird. And then when we started having a family, we were like, oh my God, there's this whole world of, we're trying to help other gay couples, and we don't really know many other gay couples. Like it's a whole world. We went to our first Pride with Rio for the very first time. Like we'd never been to Pride before. And I think actually in my younger years, because when I was, the representation that I had was George Michael being outed for being in the back of a toilet in somewhere, there were like people being outed and it being a shameful thing to be gay rather than actually a happy thing to be gay. And so I feel like throughout those years, without me even realizing, I put barrier after barrier after barrier up. And I never talked about my relationship online ever. Like it was all about my business and all about where I was in my business and etc. etc. And then when it came to like actually talking about me and Francis, I'm like, oh my God, we've never done that. When I try and look back at photos and look back at like when we first got together, there's like one. We never had photos together. And it's just like, oh my God, we really missed out on like actually appreciating our relationship and how amazing it was. So when we had the kids, we then really like delved into our gayness. And I feel like I've really actually enjoyed, celebrating myself rather than kind of hiding that part of me. And it's been so fun and so good. Like going to all the Pride, I'm like, oh my God, what the hell was I thinking? Not going to Pride. It's like my favorite thing ever. So fun. And yeah, I just feel like coming out wasn't necessarily easy for me. My parents, they are amazing parents, but it was different. Their experience, when you think back to their childhood, their experience of being gay was getting AIDS and dying and being ill. And so I understand that they were resistant to start with because they had a totally different, like my dad would say, like, if I was gay at my age, I would have gone to prison. Like that's kind of like it's changed. The world has changed so much for the better. I know there's further to go and further to push it, but really when you think about where we're at in this space where I can be allowed to be myself and not have to hide any part of me, like that is incredible. And I really feel like really happy especially in the UK. Like we're so blessed. I've got so many amazing friends, and all the fears that my parents had of me being lonely and not having friends and being different, it's the total opposite. Like I've got an abundance of incredible people around me. I'm super happy. I've got a family. Like they just would never have ever expected where I am today to be my reality. And so I think that if they could have projected that and seen where I was going to be, they would have been thrilled for me. But in that moment when I was coming out, I just think they just found it really hard. And it wasn't an easy coming out experience where everyone was like open arms going, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. It was like, oh no, we've got a problem. So I feel like, and if anyone's going through that as well, listen to this podcast, I would just say, just time is the best healer, and don't try and push anything on them just because you feel a certain way. Like I really stood my ground with where I was, like, this is who I am. And you can come to me if you want to have a relationship for sure. But if you don't, that's also fine. And I'll give you your kind of like freedom to do for you to choose, but you're choosing, this is the person that I am, like you're choosing that person rather than someone that you thought I was going to be. And it's easy for a parent. I totally understand. It's easy for a parent to be like, I have these projections of where I think my children are going to be and do and have and what they're going to experience. But if they don't fit that mold, sometimes it's a bit challenging. But yeah, if you're in that situation, just know that in time, everything always works out and it's just a part of your journey. Yeah.
Did you have that perspective when you first came out? You said you obviously sound very understanding of the fact that your parents' era was very different.
Mm.
You understand their fears were coming, or their hesitation was coming from fear. Did you have that understanding in that moment, or is that something
No.
again over time?
No, I literally didn't have that understanding until recently when I read this book about gay men and back in the 80s, and then it kind of like did a history lesson of like basically gay history. And I was like, oh my God, my dad would have experienced that. No wonder he had that viewpoint. And then like when I was coming out, they were like, you need to choose between us and my boyfriend at the time. And I was like, I'm not choosing my boyfriend, I'm choosing who I am. And so that's who I'm choosing, me. And so I definitely had that kind of strong minded view. Yeah, but it's so high. Like I'm always very understanding though, because I just feel like everyone in life is just always just trying their best from their own viewpoint of the world and what they've experienced. So yeah.
Um, do you think enough is being done to encourage men to talk about their mental health?
I think it's definitely changing, isn't it? I feel like men and mental health, it depends what kind of man you are. Like, I feel like my dad's generation was definitely zip tight and didn't speak about how they're feeling. And I feel like the younger you get, the more of a voice that people are getting, which is amazing. I think it's great. Is there enough being done? I think at the end of the day, it's based on the person individually, isn't it? And based on how that person feels about speaking and feeling vulnerable and all of those things. And so yeah, I just think having like, I think also like both me and Francis have had like help in terms of speaking to counselors and speaking to therapists, and it's been such an amazing experience for both of us. And I think that if you are feeling any of those feelings of like, actually I don't know how to get this out and verbalize how I'm feeling and I'm feeling low, I definitely think just speak to someone in terms that's a professional, because they can get out of you what you don't know in yourself. Sometimes they can shine a light on, oh God, I completely forgot that part of my childhood that's meant that I'm the reason that I'm the way I am right now. So I would always say go and get some help and speak to people that can actually help that situation that you're in, for
Yeah,
sure.
professional
Definitely.
help. Yeah.
So we've got like a quick fire round. So
Okay.
we'll ask you a few questions, then just give basically whatever comes to your mind straight
Okay.
away. So what's your biggest pet peeve about the industry you work in?
The industry I work in,
Yeah.
Maybe aim it more towards, you know, influences and
Yes.
that side of things.
the fact that you've got to post every day.
Yeah.
So annoying.
Vlogging every day. Like mad props to you guys
That's
because
not the life for me. I'm far too introverted for that. What do people misunderstand most about you?
um Maybe because I'm quite loud and out there, that people misunderstand that my more quiet and shy side, I suppose. Um, yeah, maybe that.
how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone that just like, I want my kids to be like, oh my God, dad came from nothing, made it happen, and just was a person that no matter what obstacle was thrown at me, I was able to jump over the obstacle and get to the next stage. I
I'm not
think
sure.
these are quite hard questions
You've
for
thought about
Diana.
that before,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love how quick off the mark you were with that. That was amazing. Do you have any regrets?
Um, do you know what? I don't think I do. Maybe in my 20s, I regret not just being. I was always quite like, I suppose I had insecurities, as every 20-year-old does. And I really regret not throwing myself at life in my 20s. Like, I thought I was, but I was doing it behind so many pairs of sunglasses of like different lenses of like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. This person's better. I wish I could just rip those off and just throw myself at life. But I wouldn't have been the person I am today, maybe without that. So regrets, maybe not really. But if that was anything, then it would be letting go in my 20s.
Yeah. Do you think your I'm not good enough came from the fact that you hadn't fully like come out in the way that you would want to, or from the performing arts side of things where you face quite a lot of failure? Because there's two like coinciding things going on there. Like,
Yeah, and also like I feel like with my upbringing as well, like I with my parents, they'd never want me to get a big head. And so they'd always put me down to make sure that I wasn't going above my station and getting a big head and staying humble. But I'm not sure that necessarily is the best tactic. I don't know. I mean, I just felt like uh, I'm not going to do that with my children personally. Like, I'm always going to make sure that they feel like they're the most confident person in the room. Because if you have confidence, you can achieve anything.
Yeah.
And if I'd have had that confidence when I was growing up, and yes, it definitely comes from being gay, being outcast, definitely comes from a constant battle of rejection with my musical theatre career. And then voices in my head going, actually, that person is better than me. And I just feel like the combination of all of those things just wasn't great. I think The Secret was the first introduction, a book called The Secret was the first introduction for me into like, oh my God, I can change my life. I can change the way I think, because I just used to think that this is who I am, this is the way I think, and that's it forever. And then I read The Secret, or I actually listened to the DVD of The Secret. That's how old I am. And I watched the DVD and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is just my reality today. It doesn't have to be my reality tomorrow. And so that was the first time where I was like starting to see things start to go in my favor and
think
my
that's
life change.
mental health as well, isn't it? It's the
Personal development's huge.
yeah.
And having and being introduced to things that's outside of your norm way of thinking is a game changer.
Massively.
Do you have a life motto?
Yes, everything always works out for me.
I knew you were going to say that. I've been doing my research. So
Yeah.
I was going to say that one. Who is your biggest influence and why?
I think it'd have to be Francis, because I'm with him all the time and he sees the world very different to me. Like, we have very, very different mindsets in terms of everything. He's a bit more of a glass half empty kind of person. I'm a glass half full.
Very young.
Yeah. Oh, it works so well. But he really influences me in such an amazing way. He's always believing me. He's always got my back. And he always makes sure that, like, I'm the person that has the big vision and like, okay, this is where we're going to be in 5 years, this is the house we're going to live in, this is what we're going to be doing, this la la la. And he's the person that makes every single one of those steps of the dream come true. And I never realized how much of an amazing partnership we were until we had kids, because before kids I was making a lot of money and it felt unbalanced, whereas as soon as we had kids it suddenly felt balanced, like we were doing this together, and it felt so good. And he's like, yeah, he's such an inspiration in so many ways for me.
I love that. So now we have an agree or disagree round. So we'll make a statement and you just say agree or disagree. You can obviously, if there's something that you're just not either in either camp, we can go into that. So female mental health and male mental health should be addressed differently.
Disagree.
Okay.
There is nowhere near enough accessible care when people are in crisis.
Disagree.
Mental health support should be offered for those embarking on a surrogacy or IVF journey.
Agree.
Mental health should be focused on more in schools.
Agree.
Mental health support should be offered alongside medical diagnosis and treatment.
Agree.
We are the generation that heals past traumas from not being open enough about their mental health.
Agree.
Amazing.
So a few more things to ask before we wrap up.
If we had to give three, if you had, sorry, not us, if you had to give 3 tips to anyone struggling with their mental health, what would they be?
I think the number one would be there's this thing called the emotional scale, and I would download that and work out where you are on the emotional scale and just try and get yourself up just one notch, because so many people try and go from really sad to really happy. And that's where I think people go wrong. Just being from anger to frustration is a great step for each day. So take each day. That's one thing I'd do. Number one. Number two is I would get outside and walk and just be outside in nature. And number three, I would find something you can attach yourself to that gives you hope. Whatever that is, hope in anything will inevitably give you that drive to get yourself out of the state you are in. But also, it just depends where you're at. Like, if you're so down, actually just allow yourself to be in that place too, because so many times we don't allow ourselves to feel those sad feelings, and we're living a human experience, and part of that human experience is feeling a whole wide range of emotion, and allowing yourself to feel every single one of those emotions I think is really important. So yeah, that's number 4.
You're the
Really
first
enjoyed
person
that.
that said that as well,
Mm.
to allow it for a moment before you
Yeah.
try and move
Yeah.
forward. Like,
Yeah.
I've never heard of the emotional scale either.
Oh, it's
I'm
good.
looking forward to looking into
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are
That's
the
it.
what are the most useful resources that have helped you along the way?
I think reading for me, personal development has been such a big key part in my success and in every part of my life. I think getting onto The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, great one. Getting onto The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, an amazing book of just like taking the next step, the next step, the next step. And once you're in that kind of world of reading and working out, okay, who am I as a human being in this moment? It just helps you stop thinking like everybody else and start thinking outside of the box and being like, you can be whatever you want to be. I know that's such a vast kind of statement, and it gets flung around all the time, and you're like, yeah, right, but how? But by just getting yourself out of, when I started reading, I started to understand, oh my God, the keys to success are different to the words that I'm speaking in my head. So I need to start speaking to myself differently to get a different result. And I think the personal development books really, really helped me in my 30s to achieve that.
Nice. What does mental wealth mean to you?
Mental wealth, I would say, I think it's just being about, like what I said earlier, about being robust and knowing that not every single day you're going to be happy, not every single day you're going to be on cloud 9, and you're going to go through ebbs and flows of life, and being able to sit in those ebbs and those flows and allowing that to be okay. I think that's mental wealth, is when you understand that you have bounce back, and no matter where you're at in the emotional scale on that day, you have a choice to be able to change that for the day after.
Absolutely.
Nice. So we're going to wrap up. So thank you so much.
Thank you for taking your time to be
No
here.
worries, honeys.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking the time. It really is. I think it's a really important conversation to have.
And for us to represent lots of different people as well.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's amazing.
a big key for us, because everyone's journey is different. And
Totally.
To everybody else, thank you for listening. A community is built together, and we could not do this without you, our listeners in our village. We promise to continue replacing judgment for curiosity, to learn, grow, and climb mountains with you all. Above all, we hope to be your constant reminder that asking for help makes you so powerful. It does not make you weak.
we are all weathering many storms, and sometimes the only step we can make, however small, is forward. So if forward is your pace today, we respect you and we are right beside you. Until next time, take care. Thank you.
Woo-hoo.